everybody. I'm Scott Tubbs. I'm the Cropping Systems Agronomist with the University of Georgia, based here in Tifton. And welcome to the virtual Peanut and Cotton Field Day for 2020. Pleasure to be talking to you today about one of my research projects on replant decisions. This is research that was initiated back about 7 or 8 years ago with a graduate student project, and we have continued multiple phases for this research. And the project that we're looking at today is actually a seeding rate project for the replants based on the original plant population. So we've noticed from the previous years of research that a supplemental replanting of peanut does have its benefits when plant populations are below an optimum range. This does benefit with reducing tomato spotted wilt virus. We have increased yield, and we have definitely improved grade by timing the digging of the peanuts appropriately based on when the replant occurs. So this phase of research is actually looking at the seeding rate on the replant when we do a supplemental replant based on the original plant populations. So in the project behind me, there are original plant populations of 1 plant per foot, 2 plants per foot, 3 plants per foot, 4 plants per foot, and then we have seeding rates that came in behind that at 2 seed per foot, 3 seed per foot, 4 seed per foot, and 5 seed per foot based on what the original plant population originally was. So the effect here is to determine, kind of pinpoint a little bit more accurately what seeding rate would be needed depending on what the grower's original plant population is if a replant decision is determined to be the best course of action. And this plot is a representation of what we would consider our check plot. So this would be 4 plants per foot without a replant effect, because 4 plants per foot would be our optimum population on an original planting. So we would not trigger the decision to replant based on this scenario. Looking at these plants, we can see a much more prominent main stem. It's easier to see up and down the original row. The replant effect really causes us to be in more of like a twin row scenario. It's just a twin row planting that occurs separated by time, about 3 weeks apart. So we just have 1 furrow here that we're dealing with. We do end up being a little bit susceptible to the thrips flight at this same timing as the original plant populations of 1 and that we showed earlier, where there was a tremendous amount of tomato spotted wilt. But this shows the plant population effect and how it helps reduce tomato spotted wilt virus simply by having a greater population of plants to grow in and cause confusion by the thrips where they don't feed quite as heavily on the plants. The plot that we're looking at right here is the worst case scenario for this project. This is 1 plant per foot original plant population with no additional seeding rate. And what we notice in this type of a scenario is we get infected by tomato spotted wilt virus tremendously in comparison to many of the other treatments. Tomato spotted wilt is vectored by thrips, and the thrips have a tendency to look for bare ground to plant contrast, and the lower the seeding rate, the lower the plant population, the higher the opportunity for incidence of tomato spotted wilt to occur because of the thrips feeding pattern. So we'll see in this plot right here that there is a tremendous amount of tomato spotted wilt virus. Also, about 3/4 the way down the plot toward the back, there's a spot of grass that has popped up because there's no plants there to really shade out the weeds, and once the weeds take hold, they proliferate and become harder to control. We were able to control most of the weeds with herbicides, but you will have a greater opportunity for grass escapes to occur when you don't have plants to shade them out. And as seen closer up in the plot, when tomato spotted wilt takes effect, some of the symptomology are dwarfed plants, much smaller leaves, and there's less opportunity for the plant to cover the row. So it even exacerbates the problem of weeds when they start to take effect when the adjacent plants next to them are hit by tomato spotted wilt virus severely. So we really have double whammy here, that there's no plants to knock out the grasses and shade them out, and then the plants that are next to them are stunted and don't grow with vines to cover up and compensate for that missing area, and it just allows the grasses to really take hold and start to become a nuisance in the plot. That can cause issues with digging as well. When we run the digger through here, weeds that are prominent in a plot can get entangled in the digger with the digger blades, and can cause some of the plants that we're trying to dig right after that to shed some pods, and we can lose some yield that way as well. When we compare that low plant population without supplemental replant effect to the plot that we're looking at now, this is a scenario where we had an original plant population of 1.5 plants per foot, but we actually replanted about 3 weeks after the original planting with a seeding rate of 4 seed per foot. So we're trying to boost that plant population to get it up closer to our UGA recommended plant population near 4 total plants per foot. We see in this plot that there are still hits of tomato spotted wilt virus, which you would expect with the low original plant population, but that supplemental replant that has come in next to that original planting has boosted the total amount of foliage out there, and we have compensated for some of those tomato spotted wilt hits with healthier plants that came on a little bit later in the season. In this plot, this would be an original plant population of 2.5 plants per foot with no additional seeding rate. So even at 2.5 plants per foot original population, we're not immune to tomato spotted wilt virus. We have a tremendous amount of spotted wilt virus in this plot, but we have enough plants out here to compensate a little bit better than the original 1.0 plant per foot population. So we do see the stunting occurring and kind of the up and down roller coaster effect as we look up the row, but there's enough plants out there that compensate, and they start to fill in some of those gaps for the tremendously stunted plants, and basically grow into those areas and continue to produce peanuts without tremendous loss of yield. When we're looking at this replant effect, what we're really looking for here is an original furrow where this main stem is one of the original plants. The original furrow is occurring right along this straight line right along here, and then we're coming along and we're placing our additional replanted seed approximately 3 inches to the side of the original furrow, and placing the plants right about here. And here is the crown and main stem of one of the replanted plants. So it can be seen right along here on my left hand, and then where I'm placing my right hand right now, that's the difference between the original plant population and where the reseeding is occurring in our supplemental planting approximately 3 weeks later. In summary, from previous years of research on this subject, we know that there are benefits to replanting peanuts in certain scenarios. We know that the timing is very important. If we do replant peanuts, that we need to match the termination with digging closer to either the replant maturity or at least halfway between the original plant's maturity and the replanted plant's maturity. We do see yield benefits. We definitely see grade benefits by letting the plant stay in the ground for a longer period of time. So hopefully this project will supplement that work and provide us a more accurate determination of what seeding rate we need to use when we do need to add a replant scenario at our planting time.